particularly in Western conventional wisdom around shame, because we don't need shame to recognize that we've done something bad. And feeling that we're the problem, that we're bad consciously or unconsciously, is the problem. This is the problem. It doesn't help us to change our behavior to be better, but this is the gaslighting that we're getting from culture, from our society. It's even linguistically enforced. You have no shame, Annika. You have no shame. This means that you're behaving badly, or you're so shameful.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. Emma Lyons, we are going to talk about something that I think is top of mind for a lot of people given the state of the world. Examples that we've seen of narcissists out in the wild and embedding themselves in every facet of our lives. But you also talk about the narcissist within and combating a lot of issues. So you are the founder of Trauma Matrix, and I really am excited to dive into our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Annika. I'm great to be here finally.
Yeah. So how did you start this business? What was it that compelled you?
Well, I've always kind of been in the healing world, or for over a decade I have been, but I've been focusing kind of on a specific niche, working with money blocks. And when I started to realize, because I've suffered from kind of mild to moderate depression all my life, and it kind of occasionally metastasized into something more malignant. And I was at home for a while, and then I realized nothing was working for me and I needed to get away. So I moved to Mexico at that point, and there I had broke my leg, and life put me out of action. And this was kind of the start of where I started to realize the toxicity in my family that I had not noticed before, and the fact that my mother ticks pretty much all the boxes of a covert narcissist. And then I started to realize, wow, that I was the scapegoat within that system, because in dysfunctional narcissistic families, a scapegoat is chosen and you basically become the emotional landfill for all the unprocessed stuff from the family. So, and what ends up happening is the scapegoat ends up carrying a larger than life portion of shame, which can really, really debilitate you, not only in your childhood, because this scapegoat energy, it doesn't disappear when you leave the home. It continues, and you continue to attract those patterns in your life. And you continue to be kind of the scapegoat for the family system, even if you're not living directly with them. Wow. So I before that, I was doing lots of healing work, yoga, therapy, everything. But until I realized this piece, it was like I was, doing feng shui in the living room when the house was on fire, So, and I was kind of frustrated because I was doing all the healing things that you're supposed to do, and self-awareness and 12 steps and therapy and all these things. And it was like I would take one step forward and one step back, or 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, So it was really, really frustrating. And other people were having their quantum leaps and lives were changing. And I just felt so stuck. But it really makes sense now, because if you're within that toxic field, the healing isn't going to stick, you're going to maybe feel a little bit better for 5-10 minutes, but then you're just going to revert. It's like a plant. If it's in toxic soil, doesn't matter how much love or fertilizer you give it, it's not going to grow well. So that was my story. And, when I realized that, it was like my body just kind of, physically reacted and went into, grief and rage and all of the things that you because for the life that I could have lived if I'd got the support and the care and the love that I needed, rather than the constant invalidation and kind of being sidelined. And I was also the invisible child within my family system. So I kind of got ignored. Nobody noticed or cared to notice that I was depressed or always on my own. They just kind of assumed that everything was okay. And this is really typical of a narcissistic system. The focal point is always their feelings over an individual, especially the scapegoat, So once I started to realize this, I started to reclaim my power from this thing and really starting to dismantle this shame that I had internalized. And I started to realize that, this pattern, the scapegoat, the narcissist, the autocrat, and the enabler, you see this everywhere, right? It doesn't just happen in families. We internalize it. We internalize that narcissistic voice, and you can see it everywhere. You can see it in corporations, people being scapegoated by, autocrats and dictators or bosses. And you can see it in governments. All our governments are narcissistic systems. The whole system of our empire, particularly Western culture, is built on this system of narcissistic domination, basically, and control. And it's no wonder that we internalize it, because it's like in the air that we breathe. And the tool or the coding for this system is really shame. Shame is really the thing that keeps this going. It keeps the trauma being passed down. Shame is the engine that keeps that going. Animals experience trauma too, but they don't experience it like us because they don't have this shame. And what I started to realize when I started to really analyze and break it down is that shame is not a normal emotion. Shame is always a tool of control, and it serves the people who are at the top to control the people at the bottom, because you internalize this jailer and you don't need anyone around you with a whip telling you what to do. You keep yourself small and keep yourself hidden and don't speak up, just because you've internalized that voice. And our whole system is built around this. I started to see it's like a fractal system. It's what I call the trauma matrix, because everyone's so worried about AI, but really we've internalized it. We live in a narcissistic world. We've internalized this jailer. We're in a matrix, but the matrix is our own trauma and everything, I think it's my personality that I'm shy, that I don't want to speak up, that I'm, perfectionist, I'm procrastinator. These are all trauma responses. We're all going around with these trauma responses or maladaptations to childhood wounds or neglect or trauma. And we're calling that our personality. And we don't even know who we are as a result of that, because we're all trapped within this trauma, this shame-based mechanism of control. And we've internalized it. And it's the foundation of our culture, particularly here in the West.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, so many things to unpack there. I think one thing I really identified with is you had to break your leg to be silent and to actually have time to figure things out and work through a lot of this yourself. The other thing is, when we are people pleasers, when we internalize so much from other people, I saw it when I finally did get a partner in my life who treated me the way that a partner should treat you, with respect, with wanting to be helpful, with seeing all the great things about you and who you can be, and questioning, why do you feel the need to give away money as soon as you get it in? Why do you feel the need to, when you start a business, pay everybody before you pay yourself and make sure that they're completely taken care of? And all of these things that just put us behind, because it's so internalized that we have to be smaller, that we have to help everybody else before we do anything for ourselves. And by working through things with people, by doing forgiveness of myself and others, right? By taking different constructs, by doing some NLP, I realized that I don't have to do these things and that I can do something different. And it's so freeing, isn't it, when you figure this out? But I think this is something that men certainly go through, but women in particular, when we are trying to step into our power as entrepreneurs, owning our own business, owning our own thoughts and ourselves, most of us have experienced something like that in our families and our relationships and other parts of our life.
100%. And again, there's a reason for that, because women as a collective, we have been scapegoated by, the patriarchy, by, their sexual desires or whatever. Oh, it's all women's fault. Women are dirty and disgusting and shameful. So all of that shame that men felt about their sexuality, they projected it on women, and we still carry that, But this is the reason why, I believe why women experience, and Eckhart Tolle talks about this in his book, like the female collective pain body. This is the ancestral kind of legacy of trauma that we carry as women for being persecuted, for being women, for being sexy, for being, the so-called temptresses, and even that is a blame shift, And this is exactly what happens to scapegoats. So if you're a woman and you were, scapegoated in your family, and you're also a woman, you've got a double whammy. And then if you're from a, group that collectively, like African Americans or some other minority group that were scapegoated, or immigrant now is the current one, not just in the United States, but across the Western world, immigrants are collectively being scapegoated for all of the unprocessed shame of the dominant people in the empire. So you see it playing out in every single level, because shame is indigestible. It's not a normal emotion. Shame is not, they talk about it meaning I am bad, right? And that's the distinction between shame, I am bad, and guilt is I've done something bad, right? But usually, you don't really experience guilt without shame. They're so merged and diffused in our culture. And I mean, also therapists and people like that, the collective consensus, if you like, in the Western world is that you need shame in order to be a good person, You need shame in order to know who you are, know that you're not God. Brene Brown, who's researched shame, she says that you need shame in order to not be a psychopath. If you don't experience shame, that would make you a psychopath. I totally disagree with this. And I think it comes from a false premise. What these people are talking about, they're speaking from inside the shame cage, where shame is so normalized in our culture, and they think that they've just accepted that it's part of what it is to be human, rather than recognizing it for what I see it as a weapon of empire that we internalize and we weaponize against ourselves. It's like a shield and a sword. And this is why we, particularly children who've been scapegoated, we start to shame ourselves. We start to think, I'm ugly, I'm like me. I had all these thoughts. I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I hate my body, I'm useless. I didn't know where those thoughts came from. But what happens when you're a child is, rather than waiting to be shamed by the outside world, you kind of think you can beat each other to the punch. I'll shame myself first, and this will be kind of like a shield. So, and it's so normalized as that. Women do that to themselves all the time. And then also because shame is so indigestible, when you see another woman who triggers your shame, pull her down. She's got a flash. She's got a big nose. This is what we do shame. It's not digestible because it's a lethal cocktail of self-loathing, self-disgust, fear, resentment. It's so many things. It's not one emotion. And that belief that I'm bad or something's wrong with me, that's kind of downstream from the toxic cocktail that is shame. And I don't know if you've ever had a shame attack. I certainly have. It kind of hijacks your body like nothing else. Like fear might be the only thing, but fear and anger, these emotions, they have a purpose. If you're afraid, there's something dangerous there. You need to run the opposite way. If you get angry, somebody's pushing your boundary and you need to stand up for yourself. So all these other emotions, there's the positive aspect to it, but shame is just shrinking yourself. And the crazy thing that people that defend shame, they think that you need it in order to say sorry and recognize that you've done something bad. Absolutely not. That's absolutely not true. Shame, when you experience shame, you tend to contract in on yourself and become more defensive. So you're actually less likely to apologize when you're in that shame space. And you're also much less likely to change your behavior because it just hardens and you're like, if anyone says anything, you take it as a personal attack and it puts you into survival mode, in other words. So it's not like any other emotion. It's completely distinct. And this is why I have such a problem with people talking about healthy shame. Often when they talk about healthy shame, they're confusing it with other things. To recognize that you've done something wrong, you don't need shame. You could argue you need guilt, but really you need empathy is what you need. And shame has been shown neurologically to shut down our ability to empathize. So that's why I'm pointing to this massive blind spot, particularly in Western conventional wisdom around shame, because we don't need shame to recognize that we've done something bad. And feeling that we're the problem, that we're bad consciously or unconsciously is the problem. This is the problem. It doesn't help us to change our behavior to be better, but this is the gaslighting that we're getting from culture, from our society. It's even linguistically enforced. You have no shame, Annika. You have no shame. This means that you're behaving badly, or you're so shameful. You have too much shame, too little shame. I mean, it's the culturally enforced, the way shame is pushed. And it is a weapon. And once we recognize that it's not useful, first of all, that it's not helpful, it doesn't help you grow or develop or be better in any way. It may get impressive outcomes there in the moment, but it always leaves a toxic implant. And it's never successful or beneficial in the medium to long term. It just looks impressive in the moment. Like if I shame a kid here who's making noise, I might fool myself and tell myself, oh, I'm doing that to protect him. But always, 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 it's about the feelings of the shame, or I'm protecting myself. My feelings I'm protecting my feelings. You are making me feel uncomfortable. So I shame you. And if I say I'm doing that for your benefit, that's a lie. That's a lie. And we've all used shame. Because it's so normalized, particularly in the Western society, and it's so toxic because we cannot digest it. And therapists and, healers and people are telling people to sit down with this shame. And it's very, very dangerous because shame's not a normal emotion. If you sit down with shame, it's like a bottomless pit of shame. You feel that shame and there's more shame. You feel that shame and then you go into a deeper pit of shame. It's not like fear. You feel the fear. Okay, you process it from a neutral place and then you get to rage. You get to something else. You get to grief. Shame isn't like that. It's just more and more shame. So I think it's really dangerous for people to tell. Shame is what causes people to, commit suicide. Without this, what I call the inner narcissist, nobody would take that action, no matter how bad things appear in their life. You need that voice inside that says, you might as well not be here. And I could speak from personal experience because I've actually experienced that many times, It's not so much what's happening in your life. It's what that inner voice, I call it the inner narcissist because it ticks every single box of the narcissist. But the call is coming from inside the house. And we're taught by therapists and, healers to sit down with this voice, to take it to therapy. And it's absolutely the wrong approach. Because just like with the narcissist out there in the world, when we perform for it, when we take it to therapy, it just gets more and more narcissistic supply and gets stronger. So instead of that, we need to recognize it, go no contact with this thing, recognize that it's not us and really separate ourselves from that. But we're told all the time, this thing is protecting you. It's trying to keep you safe. It's your inner critic. It cares about you. It doesn't care about you. It's shaming you. It cares about itself. It's like the narcissist. You can't get on that podcast. Who are you to do that? I'm doing that to protect you. No, it's not doing that to protect you. It's doing it to keep you in your box, to keep you down. And that's not what we're being told collectively by, therapy, the therapeutic world. We're being told that this thing is, we're to treat it like a wounded child. And it's not a wounded child. It's not a wounded child. That's a different part. We need to cut this thing off. Stop talking about it as if it's you and take back your power from it. It's like a parasite. It has nothing. It's like a light bulb. It has no power without extracting your energy. So when you don't give it any fuel, when you give it no more energy, it has nothing. And this is the beauty of, the process that I've created. It's not, it really, and lots of people have said this to me, even people that I've spoken to briefly in podcasts or they've come to my workshop, they say that this has really shifted the way they experience shame and really helped them to take back their power with that voice inside their head.
Yeah. Well, as you were sharing different examples, I was running through my head of oh, yes, that was when I was feeling shame. This is when I was feeling shame. I was thinking about those different moments. And this is a perfect lead up because I wanted to ask you, what are the techniques? What are the things that you have figured out that you are helping others now do so that they can be freer, get rid of that complex feeling, their inner narcissist?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is you've got to recognize that this voice, or it's not even a voice, it's like, I don't know, an entity, a parasite that hijacks your body, you know? It's shaming you. Okay? It's not your friend. It's not your protector. It's not you. You know, that's the first thing. That's the first thing that you've got to really, really get deep in your shame doesn't make you better. You know, you got to, even then with men, the hustle culture, it's very shaming because we're culturally pushed into this idea that if you shame yourself enough, you'll get better. And the evidence doesn't indicate that. It might show a little bit better initially for some people, but medium to long term, it's very bad. So you've got to recognize, break the it's called break, B-R-E-A-K. So break the trance. Recognize that this is not your voice, that it's like a magic spell. It's a pattern. It's a trance state that you've been walking around under. And when you catch it and interrupt it, recognize that it's a trance. Naming really starts to disrupt and diffuse that loop immediately. So that's the first one. The second one is R, refuse to engage. And this is really important because so many people, you know, when we experience shame, we try to sit with it. We try to send love to it. No. Just like with the narcissist, Dr. Ramani, who's like the world's number one expert on narcissists, she talks about deep. Don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, and don't personalize. So you don't defend yourself against this voice. You don't give it explanations. You don't argue with the trance or magic spell. You just say, not today, bitch. You know, and you don't even owe it courtesy. It hasn't been polite to you. It's told you that you're useless. I don't know. It's said lots of expletives to me. So you don't owe it. You don't owe it courtesy. Not today. Or you could just say, not today. You know, it's not happening. You take back your power. It's getting narcissistic supply like energy every time you try to defend yourself or explain yourself against it. Then we go on to E. E is expose the lie. So call out the shame-based programming. Whatever the thing is saying, you're a failure, you've got a big nose, or whatever BS it's pulling, recognize that this is not an empirical truth. Like, it's not true. This is control. This is about control. This is not care. This is not your story. This is shaming. And really speaking that truth, again, disarms its power. Then you go on to A, which is anchor it in your body. Come back to your body, feel your breath, plant your feet, say your name, the year, because when shame comes, I don't know, it can make you turn red, it can make you feel hot, it makes you shrink, it properly hijacks your body. And so come back to your body and really remind your nervous system that you're safe, that you're sovereign, that you're here back in the moment. And then finally, K is kick it out. And this, you can do this physically, like shake it off, stomp it out, say it out loud. This is not mine. I'm not taking it anymore. And you can do this when this narcissistic voice gives you some crap, or you can also do this when, you know, somebody tries to project shame on you, you know, and tries to make it your problem. You have to surrender. It's not yours. You don't have to take that. I was talking to a woman in a podcast a few weeks ago. I was on her podcast and she was talking about when she was younger and she was a little bit pudgy and she was with a friend eating ice cream. And this man went up to them and said, "You shouldn't eat that ice cream. You'll get fat." And these girls, you know what they did? They did not feel shame. They laughed in his face. They laughed in his face and kept eating that ice cream. And this is the power of not being triggered, not being triggered by shame. When he was projecting his own beliefs and fears onto those kids, that was his shame. and they didn't take the bait. And this is the thing with not having that hook that the inner narcissist gives you, because you only experience shame if you have that narcissistic voice that says, yeah, you do have a big nose, or you are a big fat failure, then only then will you experience shame. So this is why taking back our power from this internalized narcissist, this is the real power move, because then we become unshameable. And that's the nobody can shame you. And this is what we should all be striving for, because being shameless, that's why my program is called Reclaim Your Shameless. It's about every other word that ends in LESS in the English language means you don't have any of that thing. But when we call someone shameless, it's a slur. I want to reclaim that word, because having no shame is a good thing. It means you're a better person than someone who's full of shame. People who are full of shame, either consciously or pushed down. This is actually the cause of narcissism. Narcissists have all this repressed shame. This is why they get triggered. If somebody says something to them, they react, because it triggers their shame that they can't look at. If you don't have shame, somebody comes up to you and says, you're stupid. You're just like, okay, it's like telling me I'm a Coca-Cola. Take that back. It's your projection, not mine. It just goes over your head. You don't take it in. So we only take these things in when we have this narcissistic voice that takes the bait. And the more we exorcise, like do an exorcism of this thing, the more we free ourselves of this thing, the freer we are in truth. Because the more shameless we are, the more powerful, the more authentic we are. Because when you're shamed, I know, because I lived with shame a lot of my life. You can't be authentic when you've got lots of shame. You can't. And people see that. People see the false kind of facade. It's trying to hide. Oh, you can't show this. It's all careful. It's all curated. It's fake, and so many people are living from that mask. And it's because they've got a lot of shame underneath it. So we can trace so many issues, like even alcoholism, addiction. I was on a podcast the other day about bulimia. Again, it's shame. It's this desire to disappear. It's all shame. Shame is so destructive. And yet we're told that we need it to be a good girl and a good boy. And we need to stop with the shame.
Yeah. Amazing. How did these realizations change your life, and how have they changed the lives of others who you work with?
Well, I mean, I know when people try to shame me, I recognize it and I don't take it in, and I don't shame myself anymore, and things happen. Obviously I mess up and do things, that maybe I would not have been the best thing to do, but I don't shame myself about them. I'm just like, oh, well, that didn't work out. What's next? Whereas before I could have been days, weeks, months, fall into a suicidal pit of shame, So that just doesn't happen anymore. Also, the more people who've released their shame, like I worked with people, they start making more money. People stop. I had one lady, and people were always trying to negotiate with her on the price, and she was really struggling. She's a personal trainer, and she was struggling to get people to say yes to her program. After working with me, guess what? She found it so easy to get people to say yes. She actually tripled her investment, and not one person tried to negotiate with her. She was using the exact same script as before, but she was showing up in her power without that shame that was, people can feel it even if they don't know what it is, and they don't trust that. They don't trust that if you're coming from a shame place, because shame is that energy of hiding. And we want to stop hiding. We want to come out and really be authentic. This is how you make the world better. You get rid of that shame. You do not need it. It's no good for you. And women, we've been shamed collectively. It's time to kick that thing to the curb and take back our power.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that you tied it back into those money blocks that you talked about at the very beginning, right? Letting go, just being completely authentically ourselves, unabashedly. I know it takes a while to get there, and it's not always perfect, but the more I live in my authenticity and lack of shame, that's been life-changing. It's allowed me, as we were talking before we jumped on, to go full-time into podcasting and to have that belief in myself and know this is going to succeed. It's allowed me to step out of having to always think that I had to have a partner in business, no matter if it was a good decision or a bad decision, because I didn't think I could do it on my own.
Yeah.
Right. There's so many examples I know from my own life, but it can be, like you said, really debilitating, and makes me think about, yeah, when I first moved back to LA from Houston a few years ago, I felt like I had to reprove myself to everybody. And I know some of the clients I attracted, although I had a PR firm and it did really well, but some of the clients I attracted felt that within me. They felt that shame that I was still having inside. They were feeding off of things that I didn't even know I was showing them, right? Those cues. And those ended up in, oh, they lost their money. They didn't think that the agreement that we had held up, right? Other situations that created more lack and put me more in this mindset of, oh my gosh, what am I doing? How do I solve this? Yeah. Yeah. So this is just something that I think we always have to be cognizant of. We have to always be aware. We have to continuously work on for ourselves.
Yeah, and scarcity again, it's shame. You
Yeah.
know, it's like
Yeah.
one of the tentacles, one of the ways shame feeds itself into your life. It tells you, keeps you small. And women, we've been trained collectively to stay small and to be quiet, more so than men. You know, women, be quiet down there. You're not allowed to be angry. I certainly experienced that. I was allowed to be depressed, but anger was not tolerated. And this
Mm.
is, you know, anger is healthy sometimes. You know, if you experience rage, you know, it's healthy sometimes. You need to express that, but this has been something that's been inhibited. And I'm like, shame is the root of narcissism. And it's the root of so many things that we can, you know, even if you look at the collective, you know, this is, we talked about this a little bit at the start, but in the collective field, when you look at countries who have been the kind of the golden child, and then they go on to, from the scapegoat, they become the golden child, then they start projecting all their shame on the next population. I mean, if you look what's happening in Israel right now, it's a classic example of that. Former scapegoats become the kind of their own, create their own narcissistic empire and project all their shame. It's a classic, and scapegoats do that all the time. If you don't transmute and release the shame, you must find another target. This is why people who were sexually abused, for example, often go off and sexually abuse the next child, you know? It's a way to try to get rid of the shame, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And it doesn't work to internalize it. We just need to release it and let go, and recognizing that it's not useful or beneficial is a huge part of that. And that's really difficult. I'm the only, I mean, there are a few other people talking about this, but the general collective consensus, and even, like I said, it's linguistically enforced in the English language, is that you need shame in order to be a good person. I mean, that, and if you look at the kind of foundation piece for our culture, particularly in the West, it's this idea of original sin. You're a sinner and you have to forgive. Like, and this individualized form of shame, which is particularly Western because it comes from Catholicism and Christianity. Like, if you look at that, you're a sinner and you have to forgive. This is a double bind that you have no hope of getting out of that. And you know, I'm bad just because I am, you know. In other cultures or pre-Christian cultures, or even over in the Orient, like in Japan and China, they have more kind of, I call it collectivist shame. So this is like, step out of line, then you're dishonoring the family, you're dishonoring the collective. And we had that in places like Ireland before Christianity came along. But that's still, you can still fix that. You know, it's because of something you've done. It's not because of who you are, but it's also very corrosive. And also leads to people, you know, unaliving themselves. But I really feel like this Western form, this Western shade of shame that we have here is really, really malignant and bad and corrosive. And it's the root of so many problems that we see in our society. This is why people take drugs. This is why people drink. You know, we get to mute that shame voice for a moment. When we take some substance, you know, we get some relief from the constant shaming that we have going on inside our bodies, inside our minds.
Yeah. We don't have to face reality, and we don't have to face. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't mention this before, but you studied international relations and you have a law degree. as well.
Yeah, I was going to be a human rights lawyer.
Wow.
And
And
I
you are doing human rights work just in a different way, I feel. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, I wrote my thesis I was in Palestine 20 years ago, and I wrote my thesis about it. And I really, felt so sad about that situation. It was because as a fellow scapegoat and invisible child, I could really relate to, it was almost like a trauma bond with the Palestinians and what they're going through. Because it's the same resonance, just on a different scale. It's just scaled up in a different level of, it's our world is messed up because it's so narcissistic, and these narcissistic systems and shame is the way the world is operating, unfortunately, and it's the root of so many problems. I could almost say all problems, but maybe someone will mention one problem that you can't trace back to shame. But I believe it's the root cause of so many terrible things that are happening in the collective, in our personal lives, so many defects, so many things that we do to destroy ourselves. Shame is at the root of that. And, we, instead of trying to deal with the symptoms, it's time we got back to the source, the root cause. That's the only way we're going to really heal ourselves. And most healing and therapies out there, they teach us how to cope with shame, how to live with shame, is because it's something natural. It's something that we all need as humans. This is the collective consensus out there. And I'm calling bullshit on that, because I don't believe that's true. Again, this is just a trance that we've been put under by empire. And always, 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 regardless of it's always about control. When you shame someone, or when someone shames you, or when that voice in your head shames you, it's control. It's not care. So even if people just get that from this conversation, I think that's an important message for people to know, that shaming is always about control.
So you have a Substack. What are the other resources where people can learn from you, work with you?
Yeah, I have a Substack. It's called traumamatrix.substack.com. So check that out if you want to kind of go dive deeper into the work. They talk about the fractals and different aspects, and I talk about the inner narcissist in a bit more depth than what I spoke about here today. But yeah, I also am trauma.matrix on Instagram and all the places, on Facebook as well. So you can look me up there. And yeah, send me a DM if this work resonated for you. I also have a free gift for people if you feel like you're raising your hand here and thinking, oh my God, I feel called out here. The free gift is called 5 Signs It's Time to Break Up with Your Inner Narcissist. So if you're thinking, oh my God, I have this, it's really affecting my life, time to do something about it, this is the next step for you. It gives you 5 signs that not only is the narcissist in there, because I believe we've all, particularly in Western culture, we've internalized it to some degree or another. It's more a question of how aware of you of how much it's impacting you, because so many people have repressed it and it's still affecting them, but they're not aware of it. So if it's 5 signs that it's actually time to go no contact with this thing, and also how to make that happen. So it's also got some next steps there about how to make that happen beyond what we've spoken about today, the break system, all of that. But it takes practice, because, if that voice and the whole collective has been shaming you for 40, 50, 60, whatever years, you're kind of entrained to that. And, it's a process to really fully come out of that and fully reclaim your power from shame, because shame is the problem. Shame is the problem, and it's time to take our power back from shame.
Yeah. I will have that linked in the show notes. Absolutely. And Emma, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto, words that continue to inspire you?
I mean, I just tell people to reclaim your shameless, to live shamelessly, because shame is not your friend. Shame is always about controlling yourself and keeping yourself small. And that's not who you are. That's a lie. That's a false mask. And the world needs people who are alive and authentic. We do not need any more people who are disintegrating, hiding, or acting out with shame. this is the root cause of so many problems that we see in our culture. We need people who are alive, who are reclaiming their shameless, who are living authentically and standing up for what we really are. Jesus did not shame people. The shame came later, you know, and we got to stop shaming ourselves, first of all. So my invitation to people listening is just walk around today or tomorrow and just notice how often you see you shaming people, you shaming yourself, or other people shaming others, you know, because you will see it everywhere on social media, everywhere. And it's time to reclaim your shameless. You don't have to live like that anymore. And it's a decision. It's a decision more than anything else.
Fantastic. Well, I know that I'm very inspired and excited to move through the world and take these words of wisdom with me. So thank you, Emma. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Annika.
Yeah. And everybody who's listening or watching this episode, thank you also for being here. Leave us a rating review, download the freebies from Emma. It is time to stop what's going on in the world, to look inside, to do what we can to fix ourselves and fix what's going on all around us. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.